several reasons. Now, the bill itself this amendment seeks to hoist is designed to provide the legislative underpinnings for an Alberta pension plan. This scheme, hidden from the public during the election, will cost a minimum of $500 million in startup costs. That's according to Travis Taves, former finance minister, who, in questioning at Estimates debate just in February, seems like a long time ago, confirmed that it would be $500 million for Alberta to collect start its own tax collection agency, a requirement for an Alberta pension plan. $500 million, Mr. Speaker. I would encourage members of the House and the tens of people watching on Alberta Assembly TV to contemplate just what we could do for education, healthcare, housing, or other affordability priorities for Albertans with $500 million. Now, this bill is, of course, the legislative underpinning for a scheme that is also based on a fake analysis hidden from the public for over 2 years. The long-promised analysis from consulting firm LifeWorks, which then issued a report without a stated author, which was pointed out in a withering critique by David Carpenter, the former mayor of Lethbridge and a former Conservative of some note. That analysis claimed that Alberta should get $334 billion of the CPP's asset pool, which represents about 53%, much higher than Alberta's representative population in the CPP, which is about 15%. The analysis was widely discredited within minutes of its release, but what it did do, and the reason why it was released with a $7.5 million propaganda campaign to back it, is that it created dollar signs in the eyes of the Premier and her consigliere, Rob Anderson, and it aroused dismissal at best and mockery at worst among the public and experts. The LifeWorks report, quote, hinges on a transfer amount that appears to be impossible, said the CPP Investment Board in an interview, adding that the estimate is not grounded in the legislation. Economics professor Trevor Toome indicated that the interpretation they use in this report is highly problematic. If you start with $334 billion, not a reasonable starting position, then it tilts the scales toward concluding an Alberta pension plan is a no-brainer when it is not. Toome said while Alberta's younger population might garner a lower contribution rate, there would be trade-offs. See above, Mr. Speaker, $500 million at a minimum in startup costs for Alberta's own tax collection agency. Now, a separate Alberta plan would also be more exposed to demographic and economic risk, and contribution rates elsewhere would need to increase among other Canadians to make up for it. The Calgary Chamber of Commerce warned that a provincial plan could hurt labour mobility, create uncertainty for business, and the Canadian Federation of Independent Business warned of significant risk to small businesses, in particular if Alberta moves ahead with creating its own plan. Now, tilting the scales, as Trevor Toome put it in the 48 hours after the report's release, is about the most charitable phrasing possible for what happened next. $7.5 million was expended on an ad campaign that just made Albertans more dismissive, more suspicious, and more alarmed at the extent to which the government would simply make stuff up, spend millions on advertising that stuff, and then refuse to answer basic questions about the assumption, the analysis, and then later, after I asked the finance minister no fewer than 6 times whether there would even be a referendum, which he would not commit to. So much for all of that chest thumping about direct democracy. He declined to answer that question when I asked him 6 times straight. And then we bring ourselves to a piece of legislation for this and so many other reasons should not be read a second time, as this amendment proposes, that does not in fact require a binding referendum, not at all, and does not allow us actually safeguard our retirement savings from political interference in the airtight way that they are safeguarded currently in the CPP. And then came the non-consultation, a survey that did not even ask Albertans whether they wanted to leave the CPP, and so we did our own, asking a simple question: do you want to leave the CPP? We have received, as of my last checking, over 40,000 responses, with 90% of them opposed. The government cannot claim that they have not heard from Albertans. We VoIP'd their emails. Over 3 days in September, the Premier received 1,400 emails about her plan to gamble with our CPP. We are still looking for one that supports the Alberta pension plan. We can only assume that MLAs are hearing the same. We get CC'd on their emails as well, and I have been inundated as the critic on this issue. Every day I hear from Drayton Valley, from Hemheller, from Camrose, from Lethbridge East. And then there was the sorry tale of the town halls, which were promised by Jim Dinning before he got mad and blew his stack during a telephone town hall. A grand total of 150 Albertans of some 4.5 million were able to get through to the shambolic town halls notionally chaired by has-been politician Dinning, and many people just hung up after being yelled at and dismissed and condescended by him. This process is yet another reason why this bill that this is supposed to be supporting should not be read a second time. I'm going to refer to a message I just got within the last 24 hours from a constituent from Lethbridge East. Hi, I'm in the East constituency. I was involved in the town hall phone calls. OMG, it was so biased by the panel, it made me furious. I want to stay in the CPP. I am retiring in just over a year and I'm scared to death about all this. I was so mad I just hung up. I knew they wouldn't let me to get through to ask a question. I've contacted the member for Lethbridge East and his office just sent me a generic info answer. I would like to be involved in your in-person town hall. Thank you. I want to conclude my comments on this legislation, which ought not be read a second time, as this amendment proposes, by highlighting the reasons why Albertans are so vehemently opposed to the so-called Alberta pension plan. The reasons why they are asking for in-person consultation, the reasons why they are so very disappointed that no fewer than 2 UCP MLAs have jammed out on the in-person town hall in St. Albert, for example. The reasons why Albertans have rejected now for a generation of this topic being sort of floated, you know, in the kind of, as one of these fever dreams of the firewall. But why it hasn't been moved forward yet. And I think often of a quote from Ralph Klein. It was about 20-some years ago when he had a panel that reported into him on this, and he ended up having to dismiss the idea that was sort of wafting out of the far-right flank of the party at the time. And he said, you don't just do this to piss off the feds, you do it if there's an economic case. Classic Klein, right? And there isn't an economic case. And Albertans know it. They know it instinctually. They know it intuitively. Consider that the CPP is an internationally recognized investment fund, one of the best managed funds in the world. Consider that it is, in fact, a gift that not even all industrialized economies enjoy across the board, to have a portable, universal, payroll-based retirement system that is insulated from political risk, that is invested wisely, that is governed appropriately. We do not realize what we have sometimes, Mr. Speaker, when we have governance that actually works for people, that actually upholds the rule of law and the public interest. Consider that we have this fund that is able to pool risk across demographics, geography, time. Consider that Canadians do not have access to as many defined benefit employer pensions as in some European countries. And so it is our CPP, our private savings, and our equity in our homes that we have to rely on into our retirement. And that's if you're lucky. That's if you're lucky. So you understand then, Mr. Speaker, why Albertans feel so strongly about the very notion of handing our one stable, predictable piece of our foregone income set aside to retirement to a capricious premier who has already committed to political interference in the retirement system. Mr. Speaker, I do not have